Well, it's November, which means Thanksgiving, not Christmas. Thanksgiving. Get it right. I think people are starting to see the holiday less as the day that Native Americans and American colonists got together for a nice and friendly dinner, and more as just a day to be thankful for what you have or what you soon will have. Thanksgiving started out as just a general feast and harvest where one was thankful of their blessings, and the idea of the indigenous and pilgrim populations coming together was sort of a one-off thing at Plymouth. And since then, us Americans haven't had the greatest respect for the native population. You might be asking where I'm going with this, so bear with me. We kinda know them better now when it comes to Native Americans, so much so that we had a trend of movies very sympathetic towards them. And I suppose Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron could be considered as such. So what message does this movie convey? How does it involve the Native American population? And ultimately, this story centers around one main horse, Spirit, a stallion of his herd of wild horses, out in the untouched plains of 19th century American wilderness, probably somewhere around Utah or Wyoming.
Well, that's it. We're hauling the steamer over the mountain. We got 6 days to connect with Utah.
After growing up to be a proud stallion, he spots a bright light one night and ventures off on his own to investigate said light. Turns out there are horses that have been captured by strange two-legged beings. After a tussle with these bipedals, he manages to protect his herd, but at the cost of becoming captured himself. And so, we follow our protagonist as he tries to find his way back home. One thing that hit me immediately watching this movie was all of the visual storytelling. It starts out with an eagle soaring through a big open Grand Canyon type place and over a few open bodies of water. Now all of these elements, wide open spaces, large bodies of water, soaring, flying, birds in general, are all symbolic of freedom, which is the main conflict and desire for our Mustang. Luckily, if you didn't catch on to that theme before, the ever so cheesy Bryan Adams songs will, in fact, remind you of these themes.
If you can't catch a wave, then you're never gonna ride it. You can't come uninvited. Never gonna give it, never gonna give it up, no.
I realize this is a kids movie, which is why they probably had to spell out a few things. Also, while the horse dialogue is just a series of usual horse noises, Matt Damon steps in to make sure the audience knows exactly what's going on inside of the horse's head.
And so I grew from colt to stallion, as wild and reckless as thunder over the land, racing with the eagle, soaring with the wind, flying. There were times I believed I could.
And this may sound like I might be complaining, but I really don't mind. Maddie D does a good job as a narrator-type voice-over person. The only thing I argue is that you probably did not need Damon in the first place. The animal characters have enough anthropomorphic expression to convey their emotions, so they probably just wanted some star power for marketing purposes, I guess. Something else that's different in fact is that while the animals never speak any human languages in the presence of other humans, because that's not how it works in real life, they also never do so with other animals around, even if it's the same species. It's all body language and neighs and whinnies. The art style is a good mix of 2D and 3D. It's integrated well, and you can only tell when something's 2D or 3D if you look for it, which is what I do. Sorry, it's a habit. Not weird, right? The 3D itself is more cel shaded, so that works with the 2D's art style, and the designs of these horses are absolutely top notch as well. Same thing with the other animals, but let's focus on the horses. Also, did I mention these backgrounds? Look at the scenery, man. For one of the last 2D DreamWorks films, they really put in their A game into this department. Considering they only had about $80 million to spend on this movie, not a whole lot in terms of animated films. Illumination Entertainment is practically based on cutting corners and making films as cheaply as possible, while also making them look pretty amazing and all that. Their lowest budget film was something like 60 million. So that'll put this into perspective that 80 million isn't that much. Outside of the downright cheesy Bryan Adams smash hits they add to this film, thankfully none of them have to do with the number 69. You have Hans Zimmer doing his thing and being all Hans Zimmer, look at me, I have the orchestral score of the heavens. I'm not a fan of Bryan Adams, but at least his songs fit for the most part. But I really do love the orchestral score, probably because there is a reason he keeps showing up to do orchestral scores. His work isn't just golden at this point, it is a standard. I have heard from music professors, actual composers in the industry, everyone wants a Hans Zimmer type. And that's kind of a bad thing sometimes because it takes away, what would you call it, the unique talent that these composers and musicians have, just so they can sound like Hans Zimmer and be all marketable. But that's another topic for another time. Now, one might appreciate the lack of comic relief character as well, or other cliche characters thrown in to most entertainment aimed at general audiences. I know I did, because you have comedic moments, and that's it. Again, this is still a quote-unquote kids film, but it really sticks out to me as a timeless story with no added fluff, and I really like that. I mentioned the Native American population also shown in this film. The film alludes to the Native population being the good humans, while the mean old white people are the bad ones. Standard white guilt fare, and some viewers might not like that, and I kind of agree, but to that I would recommend you pause the video and look up Native American genocide on Wikipedia, especially the United States section there. Give it a quick read, enough to know what Battle at Wounded Knee and Trail of Tears mean. And I don't mean this to sound like I'm biased, I'm hardly Native American. There are movies that make the native population look more like a mystical, exotic, protective class rather than people. Like, they make it too sympathetic. But it seems like Spirit did a good job with that. The lesson here is that they still ride around on the horses' backs, but it's out of a mutual relationship rather than I own you, you obey me. And spoilers. Skip ahead to this point in the video to avoid spoilers. You know what to do. So, watching this movie again, I kind of forgot if the female Native American horse, Rain, actually dies or not. And when she got shot and was washed up on the shore after falling from a waterfall, I thought, oh, I get it. Her name is Rain because she dies. And rain is usually when something sad happens in movies. It's subtle. But instead of it raining when she dies, quote unquote, it snows, and then she's okay again in the end. Oh hey, there's my horse girlfriend. I'm also not 100% sure why she gets to join Spirit back to their horse tribe. Is it because they kind of became a couple and Little Creek didn't want her getting lonely or something? Now, if you know horses, you know they operate on a herd having way fewer males than females, so it's not like Spirit didn't have other options available. But for the audience's sake, I guess you gotta have some romance. Also, when the Lakota tribe is being attacked, I find it funny how Spirit's immediate reaction is to go after his horse girlfriend and Native American buddy, rather than the other villagers that are probably being slaughtered. Also, little silly, Little Creek probably felt pretty dumb not bringing back that rifle, the one he used to bust open the stable. He threw it on the ground like it didn't matter, even though, even back then, guns were way more effective than axes and bows to the native population. He seemed like a pretty good shot, so, you know, there is that. Now, if it seems like a nitpicking, that's because I am, but that's only because I adore this movie so much. Spoilers over. Overall, this isn't your average family film, I find, even if it is rated G. It gives the audience enough visual storytelling, beautiful backgrounds and landscapes, and a kick-ass musical score to entertain just about anyone, I would say. I would recommend this to anyone, whether they love horses or not, because it genuinely is that good, unless you just absolutely abhor Bryan Adams. Then get ready for the mute button.
over if you wanna have a go. I just wanna let you know. Yeah, get off of my back and into my game. Get out of my way, some wild and mountain.
But now comes the more important question. How furry is it? Let's comb through Spirit using my chance system, a handy rubric I use to break down furry aspects in media, those being cast, harmony, anthropocentrism, narrative, commonality, and expression. Let's start with cast, or how many narratively important characters that are furry. Our main two species for this film are equine and human, but I'm not sure if it's closer to half and half or anthro-majority. Let's think about this. The key here is narratively important. So who do we spend more time with? Alright, so the story is of a horse trying to free himself from human control. And while there are other horses around when he tries to break free, I wouldn't call them important to the narrative. So judging by this, let's go with 50-50, bringing this to a 2 out of 4. Next is harmony, or how natural the furries are to the setting. I don't think I'll be shocking anyone soon when I say that horses are pretty unremarkable to this film's setting. Also, fun fact that I just lifted from Wikipedia, the Lakota tribe weren't introduced to horses until around the 16th or 17th century, so that's something, right? Must have been surprising to see hoofed animals that weren't bison and could be domesticated like a good old doggo. But, anyway, unremarkable 4 out of 4 for harmony. Moving on to anthropocentrism, or how close these anthros are to being human. Obviously, they're not walking around on 2 legs and doing taxes or discussing politics, but they aren't completely feral either. Real-life horses don't have the amount of body language and facial expression as these characters have, but like real horses, they also don't talk. Granted, they also make a lot of horse noises, like more than usual. Kind of adds to the visual storytelling and lack of dialogue, I guess. Somewhere between a 1 and 2 to me, so let's break it into a 1.5 out of 4. And next is narrative, or how important these furries' animal nature is. While the main theme here is freedom, it's more about horse freedom rather than general freedom experienced by humans and animals alike, if that makes sense. I'm fairly sure people don't like being tied down by rope and being quote-unquote broken into by cowboys and ranchers and all that, but that's more common a problem for horses and other rideable species of animal. I consider it core to the narrative, so a 4 out of 4 for this one. And then next we have commonality, or how prevalent anthros are outside of the main cast. Again, horses exist in real life, and there are a good amount of them, whether they're in a herd or fashioned with a saddle and a bit in their mouth. Sometimes there's woodland critters in the background and that symbolic freedom eagle that sort of follows Spirit around in the wilderness. But then you have the white people and the native people. So it's an even split, as both anthro and humans are common in this story. So let's give that another 2 out of 4. Finally, we have expression, or how furry they actually look. Similar to Cimarron, the most anthropomorphic aspects in Spirit are the eyes and the facial features, but it's doubled down to the utmost reliance on body language, and probably some narration by the Damon of Mats.
Okay, I admit it. She was charming. In a stubborn, irritating kind of way. So, I let her show me her world.
It's not completely animalistic, but it borders that line to me due to how much they keep these horses to acting like actual horses sometimes. I mean, by sometimes I mean still in a cartoon sense. A 3.5 out of 4 for this aspect. After a tally of each score, we have a total of 17 out of 24. Even if it's not based on Thanksgiving at all, I still absolutely recommend this film for anyone, not only because this is a great film, but it holds a special place in my heart. I kind of grew up in a household with just my sister, mother, and grandmother. I won't go into too much detail, but my mother was a hardworking single parent for 2, and my sister was often busy being a goth or a rebel without a cause, leaving me with my grandmother when I wasn't watching TV or playing video games by myself. And I remember seeing Spirit with my grandmother when it came out in theaters, and we both absolutely loved it. It's a shame that cancer took her life around 2005, and it hit our family pretty hard. I'll make sure I bring her up this Thanksgiving dinner. Anyway, this has been Gregor horsing around reindeer with How Furry Is It? Click on the like button if you enjoy what you saw, and subscribe and hit the bell icon if you want to see more anthro analysis and antler antics.